So as a sociologist, I've always been interested in the nature of our connections to other people. When the pandemic started and people had to lock down and stay at home, I grew concerned about the fate of people who were used to being alone and connected and now suddenly found themselves without a really good way to connect in person. With a graduate student here named Jennifer Lee, I started to do interviews to talk to people who are living alone in New York City. And we discovered something surprising, which is that although people were alone, most said they actually felt more connected to friends and family than they were used to. They were speaking more often on the telephone, they were doing video calls. They had the sense of experiencing something collectively, since everyone in the world was dealing with the same problem. The first essay I wrote about 2020 was an op-ed piece for the New York Times, and it was about why social distancing, as compelling as it sounded, was probably a bad concept and worse idea. We all know that different neighborhoods in New York City had different pandemics. If you were living in Lower Manhattan in an affluent neighborhood, maybe 60–70% of the people who live around you in typical times were gone because they escaped to second homes. If you were living in working class neighborhoods in Queens or the Bronx, it was a very different story. First of all, social networks mattered tremendously. There's a set of neighborhoods around Flushing in Queens, for instance, that demographically on paper look like they should have really high rates of COVID fatality. But in fact, residents there were protected by their social networks to people in Asian countries who warned about the dangers of COVID long before the US was concerned. I tried to tell a New York City story that would speak to the breadth and diversity of experiences here, also one that would be real. It's a book that's about the crises we faced and the very hard time we faced in 2020, but also about this incredible resilience that you find in every part of New York. One of the things I learned from getting to know New Yorkers who threw themselves into the effort to take care of other people is that the worst thing that you could do that year was lock your door, take care of yourself, and let the world run its course. One thing that really inspired me was learning just how much you could do as a person, as a member of a community during a time when there was so much need, and how rewarding it was to participate in that.